Hey there, today I'm going to show you how to take an image like this in Adobe Photoshop and turn it into something far grungier like this, using a couple of basic filters, an adjustment layer, and a couple of free textures that I pulled from texturelabs.org and unsplash.com. So since I'm already in Photoshop and I'm a PC user, Control-N to set up a new document, and I'm going to go with a width of 2160 and a height of 2700 measured in pixels to give me a 4:5 aspect ratio, which is great for Instagram posting. Resolution is set to 300 pixels per inch, and the color mode is set to RGB color with a bit depth of 8-bit. So I'm going to create, I'm going to go to my folder where I have this image of a model saved from unsplash.com. I'm going to bring this in and scale up the image, drag it down a little, and that's looking good. Click the check mark, and I'm going to rename this original and Control J with that selected to create a copy, and I'll just call it copy. Now, if this isn't already a smart object for you, you can right click on the layer and go up to convert to smart object. My Photoshop is just set up in such a way when I place new things, it's already a smart object. So with this being a smart object or a copied layer, I'm going to go up to filter, going to go down to blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm setting it at a low value of 4 pixels. This just removes some of the hard edges that I want to see go away because we're going to be adding in a lot more texture as we go along. So this just kind of smooths things out a little bit for me. So press OK. And then I'm going to go to filter once more. I'm going to go down to noise, add noise, and these are the values I'm working with. Amount 10%, distribution uniform, and the type of noise monochromatic. Of course, you're welcome to experiment with these values and try different things. I just find this works best for this image in conjunction with the threshold adjustment layer that we're about to bring into play. So I'm pressing OK. And then I'm going down to create adjustment layer. I'm clicking on threshold, and I'm going to bring the slider to the left to get the contrast I'm looking for and type in 70. I think 70 is going to be the right value for this to show off the portions of the eyes in the telephone that I want. Now, the real magic with this threshold adjustment layer happens when I change the blend mode. So I'm going to toggle down the blend mode options, and I'm going to select overlay, which brings out some really nice bruised colors. I am calling this project Cracked and Bruised. So I'm getting some really interesting purple, blue, red tones out of this, all sort of smeared and blotchy around there, which I really enjoy. So I am now going to shift click with the layer below there and Control G to group these together. And I'm going to call this pre-merge, and then Control J that grouping and call this merge, because what we're going to do is with the selected, Control E, merge those layers together. And now that the threshold layer has merged with the image, the noise is actually spread out a bit more and filled out some more steps, which I personally like. I like how that's filling everything in and is giving a really nice noise pattern that I enjoy, especially around the hand and the clock here. Not the clock, sorry, the telephone. Okay, so now that we have our merge layer, we can add in a couple of free textures to fully sell this. So I'm going to go back into my file explorer here. I'm going to bring in this marble texture, bring that on top, rotate 90 degrees, fill up the frame. That's looking good. Click the check mark. And I don't want these tan yellowed colors coming into play here. So I need to do a couple of things to this texture to make it work for this image. First, I'm just going to change this to marble. I guess we don't need to call it grass. This is a marble texture. All right, so what I'm going to do is Control U to bring up hue saturation, and I'm going to take the saturation all the way down so it goes into this grayscale. Then what I'm going to do is Control I to invert it, so that way the cracks that we get are going to be the white portion and everything else is going to be grayish. And then I'm going to change the blend mode to screen, so that way it's really just affecting our dark areas of the image. But problem is now this has flattened out my image way too much for my liking. So I'm going to add one more filter to this layer here, Control L to bring up a levels adjustment, And then what I can do is take the black slider here and start to drag it over so that way we get more contrast. And I'm going to bring it to right about here. I think 76 is good. So now I've introduced more contrast back, getting a little more of the blacks, but I'm still getting what I like out of that cracked marble texture, adding a lot there. Of course, you could play around with the blend modes and the levels adjustments as you see fit if you wanted to see that also start to spill into these overexposed white areas here, but I wanted to keep it pretty isolated to the darker portions of our subject here. Now, I'm going to bring in our final texture. So I'm going to go into my File Explorer and bring in this free photocopy textured paper that I got from texturelabs.org, paper 338, if you're following along. I'm going to bring that in, again, rotate 90 degrees, scale that up, fill the frame, and I'm going to change the name to photocopy without a U. Okay, now I'm going to change the blend mode to exclusion. And the reason I'm doing exclusion is it's kind of giving me a 2-for-1 texturing effect because it's affecting both the dark and the light areas of the image, which is exactly what I want. I want to see this affecting everything across the board. However, it is a little intense at the moment, so I will also add a levels adjustment to this texture, Control L, and I'm going to bring that black slider over just a bit, probably about 18 or so. I think that does it for me. I'll turn that levels on and off just so you can see how that takes away some of the fading. And I'll put all of my textures into its own grouping. So Control G to group it. And I'll just call that textures. And then I'll make one more grouping just so we can see final versus original product. So Control G and final. So here was our before. And here is our after to complete the cracked and bruised texturing tutorial.